This is a crazy story I came across while researching the internet for other F1 things. It's an article of motorsports, which I'll link in the description. It involves Jos Verstappen at arrows, Helmut Marko putting the pressure on, a Brazilian rookie, and please watch till the end for a future world champion getting something stuck in a toilet. I had to make a video about it and it fits into the old F1 playlist. I'll leave it up as an end screen. I'm Wimbo. Here's 3 seconds to leave a like. 2001. The year is 2001 and Jos Verstappen is the main driver in the Arrows team. Jos had driven for Arrows before, when it was called Footwork. Talking about weird names for F1 teams, this one is nearly as bad as VCarb. What I like about Arrows in those years is that they were sponsored by Orange. And that is of course my vibe as a Dutchman. Orange is a French telecom company and they were very big and recognizable at the time. I don't see much of them now. They must have merged with a bigger company or something. So Arrows was a pretty old team, as it started in 1977, the year I was born. You can make hour-long videos about the history of Arrows. How Damon Hill drove there, or how they brought Bridgestone back into F1, but I'll stick with this story for now. Scotsman Tom Walkinshaw had been running teams in F1 before, like Benetton and Ligier, and was a former touring car driver. He was adamant about making Arrows a winning team. Walkinshaw made an engine deal with Asiatech, a Japanese company that bought the technology of Peugeot after their unsuccessful F1 attempt with Prost a year earlier. It was a cheap deal, but the reliability was poor and the car was fitted with a small fuel tank, which limited their strategies to short and aggressive stints. But that suited their number one driver Jos Verstappen just fine. Jos scored a 4th and a 5th place in the previous season and the team boss was pleased with the achievements of the Dutch driver. To everyone's surprise, the seat beside Jos the boss didn't stay with Pedro de la Rosa, but a young Brazilian was put into that seat. The name of that Brazilian rookie was Enrique Bernoldi. So far there's not much wrong there. F1 teams do this all the time. However, Bernoldi was a Red Bull Junior, and with being a Red Bull Junior, there's always this big impressive man keeping an eye on you. Helmut Marko. That man is of course the Austrian Red Bull advisor Helmut Marko, who was in charge of a group of young drivers who wanted to make it big into motorsports. Helmut Marko had a racing team called RSM Marko, and he convinced Dietrich Mateschitz to turn that team into a Red Bull Junior team, and Bernoldi was the first driver there. Marko was a big fan of Bernoldi and he tried to get him a seat at Sauber, a team that had close ties with Red Bull. They didn't take Bernoldi but chose Kimi Räikkönen instead. Which wasn't a bad choice, looking back at it. Helmut Marko made name for himself after he had helped Gerhard Berger with his F1 career. Later he was responsible for the success of Sebastian Vettel and Max Verstappen, and many other drivers who were a little less successful so far. Dr. Helmut Marko asked Bernoldi, after getting him that seat in the Arrows team, what he wanted to achieve. Bernoldi told him that he wanted to be a world champion like his compatriots Senna and Piquet. This is something every young F1 driver wants of course, and only a few can actually do it. Helmut Marko told him, if you don't beat Jos Verstappen, you're out. The message was simple. If you want to be a champion, you can't get beaten by Jos Verstappen. Jos Verstappen couldn't get his ass kicked by a rookie. That would ruin his already rocky career. What a way to put the pressure on a rookie, right? Helmut Marko has changed a lot since those days. Not. He's still doing the exact same thing now, the old sink or swim method. A lot of people don't like that tactic, but I love it. There's only a small number of seats available and drivers should show their worth sooner rather than later and be able to handle the pressure. The atmosphere. You can imagine that the mood in the Arrows camp didn't improve with a young guy doing everything to beat an older, more experienced teammate. Especially one as explosive as Jos Verstappen. At the first race in Australia, Jos Verstappen took Bernoldi aside and said that he had a Brazilian teammate before and he beat him 16-0 in the qualification battle. That teammate was Ricardo Rosset. Helmut Marko just looked at both of them and smiled. The funny thing was that Enrique Bernoldi managed to beat Verstappen several times during the quali sessions. Jos was still better in the races, but it bugged him a lot and maybe that's why Verstappen started pushing harder during the practice sessions and beat his car in Austria during practice. That made Bernoldi smile, as it was beneficial for him to see his opponent struggle. He wasn't smiling when the team gave his car to Jos, because they couldn't use the spare car. This is what he said about it in the Beyond the Grid podcast. It comes to qualifying and I outqualify him. I was happy about that, but they gave my car to him. They explained that he was there with the team for many years, he was the number one driver and that's how it goes. And it happened again after that, with each time Bernoldi getting the car back just before qualification. Bernoldi missed practice time and the car felt weird after Verstappen had used it. They used different types of brakes and Verstappen used Bernoldi's too hard. So Enrique was pretty pissed off about it all and told Verstappen at one point to not use his car anymore because he was faster anyway. 10 out of the 17 times Bernoldi beat Verstappen in quali. But in the races, Verstappen was much better. At that point, they barely talked to each other and Jos Verstappen had told the media that Bernoldi was a decent driver over one lap, but in races he kind of sucked. He was the worst teammate he ever encountered in his F1 career. So that's how the mood was in the Arrows camp at the time. I bet you could feel the tension in the garage every time they were near each other. I hate situations like that. But it gets worse. Bernoldi's engineers both spoke Italian and so did he. So whenever they were near Verstappen, they discussed everything in Italian so that Verstappen didn't understand what they were talking about. That would make anyone paranoid. And to top it all off, Bernoldi also didn't speak to Jos, but he was always nice to Sophie Kumpen, Jos's wife at the time. He did that just to provoke him. Young Enrique wasn't scared quickly, but at the end of the day, not much happened anyway. The only thing that did happen was a story about a future world champion and a toilet. The Commode Story. One time before a race, Sophie Kumpen was there with her son Max, future champ Max Verstappen, son of Jos Verstappen. He stared at that nasty Bernoldi with big eyes as a 5-year-old does sometimes, especially after hearing so many bad stories about that man. Young Maxie needed to use the toilet and he was wearing yellow Wellington boots. So he went to the toilet and after a while Bernoldi heard some noises, so he decided to take a look. And there was Max Verstappen with one boot on the floor, with the other one stuck in the pot. Bernoldi picked him up and carried him to his mom, and she then later collected the boot. Luckily, Max Verstappen only gets his foot stuck on the gas pedal nowadays, right? I love these stories. How did it end? It ended with Jos Verstappen scoring the team's only point that season and then getting replaced by Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Bernoldi was allowed to stay even if his results were poor that season. That had more to do with Red Bull paying something for him to drive. Arrows didn't make it to the end of the season due to financial problems, and that was that. Still, they gave us this wonderful story that shows the dynamics of performing at the pinnacle of motorsports. Bernoldi and Verstappen did become friends later on, so it's a case of all's well that ends well. If you enjoy these old F1 videos or a crazy race review, I'd advise you to subscribe. You'll get notified when a new video releases and it helps me as well. I'd love to have you in my community. Take care now. Doei doei.